We're going to continue discussing the different social media platforms. In this case, we're going to talk about Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So what about Instagram? Instagram, it started as a picture sharing app, basically, a platform. And right now, it also encourages users to use video, not just pictures. And it has a really large following. It's one of the large social media platforms with over 1 billion monthly active users. And, and it's part of the Meta company, so together with Facebook and WhatsApp. And because of that, it's going to use the infrastructure associated with Meta, right? And finally, it's particularly appealing for brands that have a strong visual identity, right? So because it's focused on pictures and particularly on really stunningly beautiful pictures, that's kind of the heritage and the ethos of the platform. If you have products that are particularly aesthetically pleasing, this is a platform that you should consider seriously using. Now, what kind of features are within Instagram? Obviously, it's about the images, so spend quite a bit of time improving the images. That includes both shooting with the right equipment, the right lighting is very important. And finally, you might require somebody to do some editing, photoshopping. There is some post-processing that might be needed for the images to meet really the standards of the industry at this point. That's one. Second part, something else that you should consider, like in other platforms, hashtags are important. This is going to enable users to find your pictures easier or your postings in general. They don't have to be just pictures. So because of this, spending some time looking at trends in hashtags and what others are using, maybe your competitors or other people that are being successful within the platform might actually be a smart way of going about it. Okay. Then within the Instagram platform as a brand, you should have a profile. That profile should have some basic information about you, what it is that you're doing as a brand. Might consider also having a brand hashtag, which will enable other people to find your content easier, essentially. Okay. Have a bio. Spend some time writing it carefully so that it captures your brand essence, what you are about. And provide shopping information if you're going to enable shopping within your app. What this means essentially is give details about what's available and not available, and so that users don't waste their time. Like, for example, if you have a global reach like Instagram does, it's important to clarify whether you ship internationally or not, and what kind of options there are. So those might actually be prominently displayed in your profile. Okay. What else should you have, or what else it's available? There is video available beyond the pictures, which is what really made the platform initially. There are 3 different types of video options: video, reels, and stories. You can use all 3 of them. The 2 that are a little bit different than traditional video are reels and stories. Let me briefly mention some of their features. Reels, they tend to be shorter videos. Here you can see the impact of a platform that we will cover in a few slides, which is TikTok. As a response to the popularity of shorter videos, Reels tend to be shorter. In fact, Reels shot using the app in your smartphone are limited to 100 seconds. So they are definitely going to be short, under 2 minutes. Now, it is true that you can post reels that are longer than that, up to 15 minutes. But to do that, you need to record those outside of the app. Okay? So you need different equipment and or different applications to do it. And they are permanent, meaning that even the ones that you have posted in the past can actually be found via searches or hashtags, which is nice. So you're not just creating content that disappears. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And it does have a surprisingly fast growth rate. So videos are very, very popular, very quickly capturing over 20% of the traffic within the site. What about stories? Stories are a little bit different. It could be any format. It doesn't have to be video. So you could actually have pictures and text, but they are temporary. So this again is probably capturing the influence from a different platform, which in this case it will be Snapchat, right? And they have the upside that they are prominently displayed, but the downside that those digital assets are going to disappear quickly. So you're not going to be able to leverage this content as long as you will be able to leverage the other traditional posts within Instagram. So it's a plus and a minus. Now, how do you go about doing marketing within Instagram? And the first step for you obviously is to create a business profile. This requires you to put in an application and get it approved by Instagram. Otherwise, you're just a user like anybody else. And the moment that you do this, then you can start using the Meta Business Suite, which is all the analytics and advertising / marketing suite that the Meta Group uses. So, if you have a Facebook account, you can link your Instagram and your Facebook and further leverage integration between the two of them. And you're going to have marketing capabilities, so you can boost some of your posts. For example, you'll set a budget for that. You will define an audience, and like all the other Meta companies, the micro targeting capabilities are particularly good. So if you have a segment that you have identified that is particularly of interest, you can use demographic, geographic, and behavioral / psychographic segmentation, and they have very nice tools for that inside the suite. If you decide, you can also enable e-commerce directly from your post. So especially if you're in a small or mid-sized company, this is particularly alluring because it enables customers to interact with you via the platform, and you can connect to other e-commerce platforms that you are actually working with. So if you already have a relationship with a different platform, you can link it through Instagram and get referrals that will be shipped directly to your e-commerce platform, and that way you can close in the sale hopefully from there. To get the shopping button, you first need to have a business profile and you need to request it. It's not given to everybody. I think there's a minimum 1,000 followers for you to get that, and it needs to be approved by Instagram / Meta. Finally, in terms of analytics, like you will expect in all these platforms, there's a robust suite of analytics that you have access to. It's under, again, the umbrella of the Meta Business Suite, and you're going to be able to see reach for the post, how many impressions you're getting and from who, which is more importantly, with very detailed information about demographic, geographic, etc. of the audience that are watching your posts / videos. And you're also going to get conversion rates. Right? Now, what about TikTok? TikTok, we've already mentioned it. It's a disruptor in this space. It has grown really, really quickly, and it's video sharing with a twist, right? With a lemon twist. And what is the twist? The twist is that videos are very short. So traditionally, platforms that enable you to share video, and they have no limits on the videos, and so you can watch YouTube videos that are 4 hours long. On the other hand, we have a generation that have short attention spans, and because of that, maybe a different format of video sharing will be useful, and that's what TikTok leverage, and they use short videos, around a minute or under. And because of that, they compete with, but they have a different follower and audience, mostly young people, 30 and under. If you're interested in connecting with Gen Zers, TikTok is a good opportunity for that. And they tilt slightly male, right? Whenever I talk about really large platforms like this and I talk about the demographics, when I say tilting male, you need to take that with a grain of salt, because when you're dealing with thousands or hundreds of thousands of users. The fact that there is 60% males or a little bit under 60% males still means there's a lot of females. So you need to take this with a grain of salt, but always, if possible, target the platform that it's going to do a better job reaching the customer audience that you're in. What kind of features that TikTok have? Well, the first thing you're going to get in TikTok is you're going to get a feed with videos that TikTok thinks are particular interest to you. This is going to be basically algorithmic curation, like we have mentioned. It uses a set of algorithms and all the data available to the site to try to guess what are the best type of videos that they can actually show you, that TikTok can show you. To do this, they're going to look at your interest, the past interaction that you have had with other videos, which ones do you click on, which ones do you don't, which ones do you watch fully, which ones do you stop and you bounce off, right? Looking at bounce rates, etc., etc. And also any other demographic or profile information available to you. And what they're going to do is they're going to name this tab as for you. These are your videos, right? And that's the first part. The second part is you're going to have also a trending tab where you're going to be able to do basically some organic search, where you're going to just be able to browse and find things that other people are finding interesting or appealing, right? To see if they actually connect with you. Maybe this is a way of broadening your interest. And then you can also do search. And by doing search, you're going to essentially search. You can search organically using keywords, but a lot of the users use hashtags for searches. So if you find a video that it's of interest to you, it will have a set of hashtags associated with it, and they are clickable. So you can click in the link for the hashtag, and it will show you other videos that also use that common hashtag. So you're going to be able to do some searches and expand the kind of content that you are actually exposed to as a user. Now, as a brand, and you're going to build a profile, right? And this profile information is going to be viewable by users. So it's important that you create a short bio in there so that people know who you are or what you are about, right? What is your brand essence, like we have discussed in the past. And then what you're going to try to do is try to increase your following, right? Like we always do. Find like-minded customers or people that are part of our target segment. And to do this, it's particularly useful to create content that they are interested in, so they will actually basically semi-organically find you. One more feature that it's somewhat new within TikTok is this idea of live stream, although not as new, but somewhat new, let's say. And this is something that you can use maybe to do some behind the scenes video about maybe your organization, answer some Q&A questions, etc., etc. So how do you go about marketing in TikTok? TikTok has algorithms that are a little bit different compared to the other sites. And there seems to be, at least at this point, less emphasis on the paying per views that it is on the organic search, organic finding of content. So the algorithms are very user-centric, and they focus mostly on the interest on the users and not so much on the marketing aspects. So you're going to have to create content that is of interest to the users instead of trying to just boost whatever content you have created, which, by the way, make sure that you cater to the user anyway, but it's particularly important in TikTok because of the algorithm. Okay. Most of the content you're going to find is not from companies or brands, it's from users. So it's going to be mostly earned media that you're going to find here instead of owned media. And we've already talked about that in the past. And now, as a business or as a brand, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to try to adapt to the fact that you create content that is specific to TikTok. And first thing for you to do, and I think this is a good recommendation for all the platforms, is make sure that you lurk as a user before you create your brand profile, right? So what do I mean by that? Make sure that you're very familiar with the platform first as a user so that you can see the tone that people are using. TikTokers have their own language, especially when it comes down to emojis and how they are used. Make sure that you're very familiar with it so that a lot of these unspoken rules are actually not violated by the content that you're going to be creating. Spend quite a bit of time in the bio. This is always a good um, this is a good advice for any of the platforms, right? Because this is going to encapsulate what your brand is about, and especially the tone needs to be in accordance to the platform. You don't want something really dry and serious in TikTok. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, you might consider becoming verified, but it's not necessary. If you are verified, all the TikTok is saying is that you are who you say you are, and yes, there is a monetary cost associated with it. Okay, but make sure that before you put on this content, you're well familiar with what is expected from the kind of people that are going to be watching your videos. Okay. What kind of analytics are available within TikTok? Well, you have a pretty powerful suite of analytics, very similar to all the other ones that we have discussed so far. The part that I find fascinating, and that maybe there is a little bit more emphasis in the other platforms, is this idea of timing. So on top of being able to know who's watching your videos and to what degree they are watching them, etc., etc., you're also gonna be able to see when they will watch. And it seems like in most platforms there are these sweet spots when it comes down to time when there is a lot more interaction in the platforms. So whenever you release information, in this case, video information, or video content. Make sure that you plan not only when, in terms of the date it's going to be posted, but also the times where it actually has the most impact. To make sure that you understand this well, we'll talk about how to test this at a later time when we talk about A-B testing. You can A-B test, or you can test not only the content, so you could have multiple pieces of content that you're trying to see which one sticks, let's say. But you can also have the same piece of content placed in different times and see which one actually garners more audience by that. Okay, and from TikTok to Snapchat. Now Snapchat, it's a mobile messaging service, so it is in some ways more similar to, for example, WhatsApp, but it's quite different, right? The idea of Snapchat is that you're sharing multimedia posts, mostly snaps, which are pictures, and also video, right? But the twist, or the difference, or the change, is that after the user that receives the Snapchat, um, snap, or the snap stories, as we will see, opens the post, the post after it plays, it disappears, right? So the idea is that the content is consumed, and after it is consumed, it goes away, and there is a limited amount of time where you can actually consume it. So things get deleted if you do not open them after, I think it's 48 hours. I don't know. You guys know better than I do, right? Because this is right up your alley. So um, who is the target audience in Snapchat? Well, it's you, right? So it's Gen Zers, people between the ages of 13 and 24 are the large majority of people using Snapchat, and they are leaning slightly female. Okay, whereas we've seen some other platforms like lean male, this one leans female. Like most of the others, the difference is not dramatic. It's 55, roughly 45. Right? Now, how do you go about marketing in Snapchat? It has a few quirks, a few things that you do different because of its, in principle, it was built as a platform, as a personal communication platform. So only people that you actually allow to see the messages are going to be able to see the messages. So those will be people in your network, right? So how do you build a new network when you have no followers, right? That becomes a little bit more challenging. So I'll explain how to go about that in a minute. It's particularly suitable, like I said, when it comes down to generating interactions with Gen Zers or even younger people, right? In terms of content, what kind of content can you create for Snapchat? Typical use for Snapchat is providing how-tos and guides. These are the kind of things that you can do with the product. These are the kind of problems that you can solve. Just talking about solving a problem in general and just alluding to the product without clearly discussing it, so it is not very sales-oriented. That doesn't tend to do very well. Providing tips about how to use a product. And maybe more interestingly, and because it's kind of unique, these behind the scene videos or pics where you're showing what goes on in the company when maybe no one's looking, or the parts that maybe the typical consumer doesn't know about. If you don't know what kind of content to create, by the way, this is true for Snapchat or for any of the other platforms that I'm going to discuss, engage with your audience and crowdsource your content. What do you mean by crowdsource? Well, it's simple. Ask your actual followers, your actual users, what kind of content are they interested in, and they will tell you. You can obviously couch this into different ways. You can provide options. You can say, hey, should I do this or should I do that? And let them vote, right? They can upvote the version that they actually like better, or you can actually ask as a blank question, right? And let them interact with you and let you know, right? Now, if you have a larger following, the second one works quite well. But if you have a small following, maybe giving options is easier, because cognitively it's easier to say A or B than it is to basically write up a whole response about what it is that you're interested in getting. Okay. Now, the key question is, how do you build your network given that it's limited, as in the reach that the Snapchats have? The typical answer to this is use other platforms to build your following. And the way you do that is by using the snap codes that enable people with a mobile phone and an app to basically add them to your following. Okay. So it's important that you use other ways of getting in contact with the customer so they can actually build your presence in Snapchat. They have their own analytics suite, and like you will expect, you're going to be able to see information about who's opening your snaps. Also, other engagement metrics about how they are interacting with you, and some click-through rates as well. Now, from Snapchat to Twitter, Twitter is very different, right? It's a microblogging, or at least it used to be a microblogging site where you were highly limited as in the number of characters that you could use. It used to be 140 characters, which means very, very short messages. And that's the way it's been until this year. This year in February 2023, Twitter released the pressure, I guess, to write really short messages, or maybe multiple tweets and connect to each other, by allowing up to 4,000 characters. Now that's a huge increase, right? And so over 300% increase in the size. So it's microblogging, but maybe not as micro anymore. So you're going to be able to post more information than maybe traditionally has been done in Twitter. And what is the audience for Twitter? The audience for Twitter, it's somewhat young, but not maybe as young as some of the other platforms we have mentioned. I would say young adults. So this is going to be perfect, for example, if you're interested in reaching millennials. And so let's just say people in their early 40s and up to late 20s, right? That's going to be the group of people that you're going to be able to reach particularly. And it leans slightly, again, male compared to female, right? Now, a few features of Twitter that you probably already know, but I'll tell you anyway, right? The first is that you're going to have an address at Twitter, and it's going to be called the Twitter handle. It's going to start with the @ symbol, and then obviously you can put whatever you want, so long as it meets community guidelines, and B, so long as it's available, right? So maybe brand name will be advisable in that case for your Twitter handle, if possible. Number two, you, like in many other platforms, use hashtags to connect the different postings. That way you have themes that you're trying to leverage, and also these hashtags are used to determine what's trending on Twitter. So it's particularly important that you use the right hashtags if you're trying to be popular and make sure that your content actually reaches the audience that you're interested in. Okay. There are also trending, like I was saying, trending posts. Those are the ones that are going to be seen by a lot of people in a short period of time. Hashtags can help you with trending. Of course, the content's bad, it's not going to trend, but that's obvious. And the last change in features recently is Twitter is trying to move away from only text to now, and text and images, to actually including video. And they're trying to make video more prominent. They're exploring with different options here. It's still a fairly new offering within Twitter. We'll see where it goes, but there seems to be a big push behind this in the last year or so. How do you go marketing in Twitter? Well, there are different uses that you can provide to Twitter because of its nature. Typically, what a lot of brands have done with Twitter is use it to provide customer support. So if you have a negative interaction with a brand, oftentimes people will go to Twitter and tweet at the brand and see if they actually get a response, either via DM or publicly, about what they can do to fix their negative interaction. And so if you're Delta and you have some flight that was canceled because of something, you might get a bunch of tweets from your customers about what happened, right? Okay. You can also use it for market research. So you have an opportunity to interact with either actual customers or potential customers. And this is going to enable you to gather the sentiment about the brand, what kind of negative or positive aspects are they finding in your products, etc., etc. So this is a good source for gathering information and insights from customers so that you can improve your marketing and or products. Okay, you can also do events at Twitter, and this might enable you to, for example, launch a new product or a new service. It doesn't have to be a product, obviously, right? And a few other features or things that are associated with marketing in Twitter. You have verified accounts. This is basically try to provide some sort of trustworthiness about the communications. And it's a paid option. You don't have to use it, but a lot of brands that are present on Twitter or companies verify their accounts. And then you can boost your tweets. So if you want more people to see your tweets, you can basically pay Twitter to make your tweets more prominent. This is now commonplace in all the platforms that we have discussed. And while organic, good content and good hashtags used to be the way of going to the top of the tweet feed, now oftentimes you're going to have to boost the signal by promoting your tweets. Has a solid analytics suite, which is proprietary, and you're going to be able to see the usual suspects. You're going to have number of impressions. You're going to be able to see information about the people that actually open, or in this case not open, that looked at your tweet. Also other engagement metrics like number of times retweeted, shared, liked, etc., etc., etc. And finally, in terms of the different platforms that we're going to discuss in some more detail, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very different and very similar to some of the platforms that we have discussed at the same time. It's somewhat similar to Facebook in its origins. It started as a professional networking site that we're going to basically enable you to improve your career prospects, right? And as a company, maybe your sales prospects. And because of that, it's oftentimes used for job searches. It's going to be one of the features that I'm going to highlight on the next slide. But what makes LinkedIn different is from all the sites, all the platforms that we have discussed, if you're interested in doing business-to-business marketing, this is the site. Whereas you can do business-to-consumer marketing here, You can do that in all the other platforms that we have discussed. But business to business marketing is predominantly completed. If you're interested in doing it online with social media, it's in LinkedIn. Okay. This is so much so that there are over 50 million companies that are actually operating or have an active page at LinkedIn, and roughly three-quarter billion users, which are mostly professionals. Right? Now, again, if you look at the demographics, it's somewhat young, but maybe not as young, right? So not as many Gen Zers here, although Gen Zers will be coming probably to LinkedIn soon, like in your case, once that you graduate, maybe, right? But they are mostly leaning male, and they are mostly millennials. So let's just say young adults, young professionals. It's probably, the most represented category within LinkedIn. And if you are looking at their demographics, most of them do have at least one undergrad degree, although there are plenty of them that also have some grad degrees and plenty of experience. Good. So when it comes to marketing LinkedIn, a few things. One is you should create a company page. Also, for you to go official, you're going to have to contact LinkedIn and tell them that you're a business and get a professional version, which means that you're going to have to pay so that you can actually use some of these features, like, for example, put on job postings and create groups. And groups are one way of further exploring broader networking opportunities for people within your network. So if you're in an industry but you want to maybe expand into other industries or having interactions with other potential clients, groups might actually be a good way of doing that. Within LinkedIn, you can also sponsor some of your posts. In fact, LinkedIn, of all the options, they have a lot of very different but effective in all cases ads that enable you to put your information in front of potential candidates for either improving your pool talent if you're finding for people to work at your firm, or to basically get some clients you're in a B2B environment. They have, for example, among other options, carousel ads, which are ads that basically showcase usually an image and some text, but they are arranged in a way that as you move from one slide of information to the other by swiping maybe left in your phone, you're going to be able to kind of see the story that is trying to be portrayed by the app, right? By the ad. And you are able to create carousel ads up to 10 images, right? So you can tell a pretty telling, but let's say short story about what you are about or how you can help somebody solve a problem. Okay. Again, has a robust set of analytic capabilities, and to do that, you're going to be interacting with the campaign manager, which is the suite of apps or tools, I should say, not apps, tools that enable you to manage campaigns within LinkedIn. Now, let me, before I close, discuss quickly some sort of how to pick criteria for all these platforms, and there are many that we haven't discussed, right? Like Pinterest, etc. It's mostly common sense if you've been paying attention to marketing and you know anything about business, but I'll say it anyway, right? The first thing that you should do is put your customers first, right? At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is engage with customers. So if you're going to do that, because change is hard, instead of you going to the places that you know how to deal with in terms of platforms, you should go where your customer is already. What do I mean by that? Well, look at their habits and see where they are basically consuming their content. What I'm trying to say is, it's the old saying, right? Fish where the fish are, right? So instead of hoping that somebody's gonna look finding for you, which is, just go and find them where they are, right? That's the first step. So learn about your customer. You might have to do some market research for that and see what they are consuming, and then make sure that you're present in those channels that they're consuming. That's one. Two, it really depends on your goal. Not every platform is equally suited for all goals, right? It's not the same when you're early in the customer journey, right? You're trying to gather basically awareness about a brand, then a lot of the platforms can do that for you. Okay. On the other hand, if you're interested in sales, there are some platforms that are particularly good at selling, in particular Instagram, if you're in a small business environment. It's a great option for you to basically close in sales. Okay, it's going to give you capabilities that you could only dream of 20 years ago if you're trying to reach customers in a small business environment. On the other hand, if you're trying to get more new people for your talent pool because you're trying to do something new in your business and you don't have people that maybe can create your social media strategy, then maybe LinkedIn is a perfect place for you to actually find that talent, right? So it really depends on your goal. Okay. Now, regardless of what your goal is and what your audience is and what they usually are, in all cases, you're going to have to do some similar things to do well within these platforms. First, make sure that you learn the platform before you launch your business presence within that platform. What do I mean by that? Lurk before you comment. By lurking, I mean just listen, maybe interact as a user first. Make sure that you get a sense for the tone, the kind of information that is typically shared, the information that is not shared, the things that are people interested in, the people that are not. And this is going to be something that is going to take you time. Of course, if you're going to take a shortcut here, hire somebody who's been doing this in that platform for a long time. They will obviously have very good insight into all these things. Okay. Further adding to this, make sure that you understand the algorithm. Most of these platforms have some sort of feed, and for your content to be present at the top of the feed, you're going to need a couple of things. One is the content needs to be in point, and it has to be the kind of stuff that it's interesting and appealing to people in that platform. Okay, again, make sure that you understand the platform well, number one. Number two, another way of gathering information on that is looking at trends. What's trending? What's successful in the platform? Try to see if you can basically content analyze what's working. See if you can basically understand the nuts and bolts of the postings that are going viral, the ones that everybody's interested in looking at, right? Good. And in most of these platforms, again, try to avoid direct sales content. Most people don't want to be sold to, okay? So it is okay that you talk about how to solve problems. People want that. They want to have how-to videos and tips on how to use different things, but it's not so much a hard selling ecosystem. Social media is not for the most part. So if you make content that is too salesy, it's not going to go very well, okay, typically. Okay, that doesn't mean that you cannot have clear brand promotion content. Okay, you can be rah or brand's great. That's okay, right? But you might have to be more cheeky about it. You might have to be going with the flow, what's acceptable in that environment, right? And not very serious, right? Or maybe not as serious as you will do it in other platforms. And then finally, be consistent. That is the most important aspect. Once that you get the whole of the kind of content that you should post, and by the way, you can test all this stuff. We'll talk about that later on to see what's working and what's not working. But once that you kind of nail down the content and the tone, and then the most important thing for you is to do is consistency. Okay, do not agree to do something that you do not have the resources to do. Okay, don't just push yourself in the beginning to post daily If you cannot generate that kind of content, and it's hard to post daily unless you have a method and plenty of resources, and that means stuff essentially. And what you might have to do is you might have to go to weekly posts, bi-weekly, even monthly, that's okay. But the important thing is that you keep it consistent. In fact, you can even tell in your profile how frequently you're going to post so that people know, have very clear expectations about what it is that you are going to be doing or not doing, right? And don't commit to something that you cannot deliver. And then finally, obviously, this is not an either or proposition. There are many platforms that we have discussed. There are many more that we haven't touched upon. There are many more that will be created in the future. The important thing is be smart about it, and you can cross leverage the platforms that you already have. So you can take a posting for Twitter and boost it by posting it in other social media platforms. Okay, that way your followers in one platform will see what you're up to in another. Okay, so be smart about it, pick wisely, and I will see you in the next one.